Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Mr. Fitness, the body transformation specialist. And in today's episode of Weight Loss Warriors, we are going to be speaking to Angi. Now, I am trying to, okay, I got that right. I had my keyboard up and I didn't know why it was up. But anyway, we are here today on the newest episode of Weight Loss Warriors to speak to Angi. Now, tonight, Angi's going to come on and she's going to share with us her weight loss story. She's going to talk about everything. She's going to talk about where she's been, where she's at right now, where she's looking to go, and everything in between. So if you're in the mood for another awesome episode of Weight Loss Warriors, then you are in the right place. So before we get Angi on and talk about her weight loss journey, if you've missed any of the past episodes and you like to get caught up, head on over to youtube.com/fitnessmotivation4u2. That's fitness motivation, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2. There you'll be able to check out every past episode. Plus, I got some other really good content there. And while you're there, consider subscribing and hit that bell notification so you never, ever miss another episode. Also, if you've got a weight loss story that you'd like to share and you'd like to do it here on a future episode of Weight Loss Warriors and you're watching this live, DM me. But if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link below in the description and let's talk about getting you on a future episode. Last but not least, before we try to get Angi on, if you're looking to start a weight loss journey but you don't know what to do, or you've already started a journey but maybe you're not getting the results that you'd like to get, then I'd love to help you out. If you're watching this live, go ahead and DM me and let's talk. But if you're watching this on YouTube, then click the link below in the description and let's talk about getting you into the best shape of your life. So with that being said, I am waiting for Angi to go ahead and request to be part of the live. She should be doing that in just a few minutes, hopefully. But if you guys have any questions during the course of the live for Angi about her weight loss journey and how she accomplished what she accomplished so far, then go ahead and put those questions up and I'll make sure that she gets those answered for you, obviously to the best of her ability. Also, if you got any questions for me during the course of the live, go ahead and put those up as well and I'll make sure we get those answered as well. So Angi should be joining us in just a few moments so you can you can listen to her journey and hear me stop talking. So Angi, I see you're there. When you get it, you should see something on your screen that's going to prompt you to request to be part of this live. I do wish Instagram made doing a live with 2 people in it a little bit more seamless, but hopefully that's coming in the future and they can get that going. So it looks like she just requested. So a few moments. Guys, again, if you have any questions for Angi, make sure you go ahead and put them up and I'll make sure we get those questions answered. But again, Angi's going to be talking about everything tonight. There she goes. How you doing,
Hi,
Angi?
guys.
How's everything going over there?
It's going great. How are y'all?
I am good, and I am sure everybody else on this show tonight is very, very interested about hearing your story and hearing about your success and everything that you've gone through and your ups and your downs, your highs and your lows. So, I don't like to waste any time on these interviews. And I know when we were talking off the air, you said that when you started your journey, you were so heavy that your doctor was unable to weigh you.
That is true.
Now, where did your doctor ask you to go to get weighed?
To a feed store because they would have the only scales heavy enough to weigh me. Their scale at the doctor's office, I believe, only went to like 350, and I was heavier than that. Like even at one point when I was going through some different medical issues that I did have, and we'll get into that later, I'll explain. I had to have an MRI and they didn't think that the MRI machine would hold me. And so they had to find one that would hold people that had a weight limit of 500 pounds. And it barely held me for that procedure. So, yeah.
So what would you say, what was your starting weight when you started the journey after you got weighed?
The very first time I got weighed that I know of, the heaviest I've ever recorded was 487. But I would venture a guess that at my heaviest, I was heavier than that. But 487 is the highest recorded weight.
Okay, so that was the highest recorded weight. Now, let's go back to that moment when the doctor told you that, you know, unfortunately, we can't weigh you here in the office because we don't have a scale that meets that capacity. How'd that make you feel?
Terrible. I mean, like, I never saw myself as a large person. In my brain, I was like everybody else. And so it always surprised me whenever I couldn't fit in a chair that my brain is telling me I could fit in because my hips were too wide to fit in the arms, or that I couldn't walk with everybody because I was just too tired. I mean, that didn't really occur to me until it would happen. And so when he told me that there was not a scale in his office that could weigh me, it was embarrassing. It was like, well, where do I go? It was kind of hopeless. It's like, this is the place where people go to get healthy, and you're telling me I can't have even that much? You know, I mean, just as simple as finding out what your weight is, and to go to a feed store, and then the embarrassment of, I never did. I was all like, nope, I'm done. I'm not going to a feed store to weigh myself because of the embarrassment. No, I'm not here to buy feed for my cow, but can I borrow your scale? No, I don't have to weigh anything but myself. You know, no, that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So would you say that was your, I like to call it your enough is enough moment? Was that the moment, or was there another moment where you decided it was finally time to do something about your situation?
It was another moment. Oddly enough, it was not that moment.
Okay.
It's like,
And
oh,
how
you're
much
too
time was in between that moment and your enough is enough moment?
years.
Okay.
I was in denial. Even to this day, I'll look back at pictures and be like, how did I not know? Because I just simply was not aware that I was as big as I was. Like I said, in my mind, I was smaller. I had no clue. I was blissfully ignorant, and I didn't want to wake up from that dream. It wasn't until I had my gallbladder removed that I realized I wasn't just heavy. Because I didn't, you know, being that big, I didn't have the typical, what you would associate with somebody who was that weight. I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have sleep apnea. I was not at risk for diabetes. So I just like, oh, dude, I'm just overweight. You know, I don't have any of those health issues. I'm just overweight. But when I went into the hospital with the worst pain I'd ever felt in my entire life, and I found out it was gallstones of all things, and I had to have my gallbladder removed, that's when things started to turn in my head that things needed to change. Did they? No.
Okay.
It was another year or so, about a year, that finally I had that moment. All right, so this will come up in the interview. I am a person of faith, and I believe God had me on this one. My place of employment at the time, about a year later, had been blessed financially, and they wanted to do something nice about it, or with the money, and so they offered to pay for a gastric bypass for me. And at that point, I'm all like, I got nothing left to lose. You know, and in this year when things started finally spinning of how I got to lose weight, you know, I tried different things, like different ways of eating. And, you know, I even went to a little gym, and I fell off the wagon so many times. I was literally at my wit's end. And then this came down, and they offered this. And I'm like, okay. Because in my mind, this was my last chance, was this gastric bypass. So I took them up on it. And funny story, I was so big even then, the doctor who was doing my gastric bypass, when I told him I wanted a gastric bypass, he's like, you may be too heavy for that because you'll have to be under the anesthesia for a longer time. And we may have to do a gastric sleeve because it takes shorter time. And he said, but we won't know until we're inside.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't even know at the time of the surgery.
Yeah. So
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to answer this question that popped up.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance wouldn't cover it. Insurance just would legit not cover it. We looked into it. And so again, when my employer offered to pay for it, okay, let's give it a go. Let's see where this takes us. And so I took them up on the offer, and I did the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you went from what could have been at your highest over 500 pounds to where are you at now? What's your current weight?
My current weight, okay, has actually been fluctuating the last couple months.
Okay.
I've been experimenting with a diet, guys. It's been kind of interesting. I'll tell you about it. But right now I'm at, I think, about 265. And a good portion of that, well, yes, guys, I am still big, but I also do have a lot of muscle mass under all of this.
Which we will be talking about today, because if you have not checked out Angie's page and you haven't been by her story, and this is the first time you're hearing it, one of the first things that I noticed about your story when I first started following you and reached out to you was the fact that a lot of your posts were you in the gym. So I definitely want to talk about that. And
okay.
How that has actually helped you along your path to getting you to where you want to be. But before we get to that, I want to talk about your goal weight. Do you have a goal weight? Are you there, or is that not important?
That's kind of tricky because typically when you tell somebody a goal weight, I've never been what I would consider a goal weight.
Mm-hmm.
This is the smallest I've been at all, you know, and like, and this is going to sound terrible, but I was probably heavier in high school than I am now. All right. I've been big my entire life. I mean, so that would probably put me at like my freshman year weight right now. Okay. People want to get back to their high school weight. I'm there. But no, as far to answer your question, it's just healthy. Because I do lift, I know I'm going to have muscle. So when you talk about weight, I may not look like I would weigh 180, but I could easily weigh 180, you know? But so I have no idea what 180 would even look like on me, or 150. I think, okay, I'm 5'6", so I think 150 is what is average, but I don't know if I'd look like a skeleton at 150, you know? And, you know, it's just, whatever looks healthiest on me, you know, that's what I'm going for, but it's under 200.
Okay. So one of the things that I think was important that you mentioned is the fact that you like having muscle on your body.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, I believe that nowadays it's a little bit more with social media and everything. It's a little bit more acceptable for a woman to have a more muscular toned body, which is a great thing because muscle is actually the key to burning fat and helping you look the way you want to look. But how did you change your mindset on focusing on that and not just weight loss?
That's a good question. Because in my mind, I've always had that muscle versus weight loss mentality. I can't remember a time when it was just fat loss. Maybe when I was just beginning and it wasn't really catching on, like that year after my gallbladder surgery where I just kept falling off the wagon. I'm pretty sure I was only focused on weight loss at that point. Or fat loss, whatever. And not really building muscle because I wasn't really lifting weights. And so I didn't really see anything happening. I didn't notice any real changes. So it was really discouraging. So I fell off the wagon. But when I started working out at, I'll call it a Globo gym, you know, just one of the traditional gyms that you would go to when you go to a gym typically. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue, but I started lifting weights for the very first time, and I liked the way it made my muscles feel. I felt strong. I felt powerful. I felt confident for the very first time because I typically put on a facade when I was larger, I used to pretend I was happy and hide behind a smile, but and hide behind false confidence.
Hmm.
And the confidence I felt when I lifted weights, it wasn't false.
Hmm.
It was real. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had something that was just mine. And it was awesome. And I thank God for it every day. But then, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was starting to get a little bored with it. And then I discovered CrossFit, and I haven't looked back. um, I went to my first CrossFit class um, in November of 2014, and I have been going ever since, and it's
Hmm.
been amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it looks like Transforming Tour has a question, which I think it was actually one of my next questions,
Okay.
more specifically for women, because what I noticed that, not, let me not say most, but a lot of women that have never lifted weights before have this idea in their head that lifting weights is going to make you look like a man. So Transforming Towards question is, were you nervous going to the gym at first and trying something new such as weightlifting?
I was very nervous going to the gym at first, to answer your first question. And because I was big. I mean, even with the gastric bypass, yes, I had started losing weight, but I was still big. And so I was going into a place where there was a bunch of fit people, and I felt out of place. But I'm like, one day I'll be them. Well, not, and that was my mentality at first, right? And then when I went into a CrossFit gym, again, there's that nervousness because they're even fitter people. Not saying that if you go to a regular gym, you can't get super fit. Okay, guys, I just watched the CrossFit games this past weekend, and hashtag goals. Um, but it's very intimidating walking into any gym the first time if you're not used to it. And so, yes, I was scared. I didn't think I belonged. But with a regular gym, you are kind of on your own. So it's easy to get into that bubble of I'm on my own, I'm doing my own thing. So it's easy you can look past it because you're doing your own thing. With a CrossFit gym, they're going to make you feel welcome. It's kind of scary at first, but then they come up to you, the coach comes up to you, and they welcome you in. Every CrossFit gym I've ever been in, and I've dropped into a few, it's been welcoming everywhere. Whether I was a newbie or experienced like I am now, that's one of the things about the CrossFit community that are amazing. Now to answer your question, try lift weights, or something new to try to lift weights, or what exactly was the question? No, but
Well, I think
why?
what she might have been getting at is maybe for someone that has never lifted weights before and their apprehension, because the reality is lifting weights is much different than walking on a treadmill.
It
So
is.
what advice would you give to someone um,
Who wants to
that's
start?
never been in a gym before but they want to start a program?
Okay. Start low. Don't go in there if you've never lifted weights before and think you're gonna throw up 100 pounds first go around. Unless you're incredibly gifted, nobody does that.
Mhm.
Everybody has a day one. That was actually one of the very first bits of advice my very first CrossFit coach gave me, was everybody has a day one. It doesn't matter where anybody else is. They all had to pick up the 5-pound dumbbell and start there. They all had to work their way up. I remember, for example, my very first CrossFit workout, we had deadlifts and we had back squats. And my very first back squat I did at 35 pounds. And now I'm back squatting 225. So we all start somewhere, guys. Just if you are starting, listen to your body. If you're moving in a way and there's pain, and you'll know if, just stop, okay? Just don't force yourself into the movements. Work your way to it. Progress, and consistency. Stay with it. Just because you don't get something today doesn't mean you won't get it tomorrow. The more you practice, the more you drill, the better you'll be. Like, if I showed y'all videos of my very first cleans, it's embarrassing. Like, I had no earthly idea what my body was trying to do. But now people compliment me on my cleans. And I'm like, guys, I still made some mistakes. Dude, I see the flaws everywhere. But people are complimenting me on them, and I lift heavy. But I started low, and I practiced, and I stayed with it. And it's easy to get discouraged. I'll also throw that out there, guys. If you're doing lower weights than everybody else or scaling your workouts, I mean, that's another thing that I've come across with people first starting out, is that they're ashamed that they have to scale. Guys, I still scale. I still can't do a pull-up. I still can't do a push-up, but I work at what I can do. And and so work at what you can do. That's the best advice I can do. Just do it.
Great advice. Great advice. So it sounds like, you know, the beginning of your journey and realizing that you needed to do something, the surgery was the kickstart.
Yes.
And now you've gotten into so many different things, and we haven't even begun to talk about diet yet, which, guys, we will get to. But first of all, let me look at what Sasha_Marie0324 says. My sister is a CrossFit instructor and will be training me after surgery and approved, but looking forward to being able to tone as much as possible. So congratulations to you. It sounds like Sasha_Marie0324 that you've taken charge of your life and you've made a decision to do something. And you know, the thing I say that is that the difference between people that succeed and people that don't is that people that succeed, they identify their problem, they identify a solution, and most importantly, they take action. And I think, you know, Angie, you said something that was critical, is consistency. The only way you're going to get results is if you're consistent along your journey. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and expect them. Nothing's perfect. But the only way you can guarantee that you never get to where you want to be is if you quit, if you give up. But if you consistently move forward through the ups and downs, you will eventually get to where you want to be. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are along the same lines as yours. One of the things that I told myself when I was first beginning, and I used to say I was going to get it tattooed on me somewhere, but I'm not going to do any more tattoos, guys, was that failure is not an option. I had to go into it with the mentality that if I fell off the wagon that time, I was going to die. That was my mentality. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to have that mentality. That's a little extreme. And I know it, but I'm kind of a person of extremes. I'm very black and white. Do or don't. There's not a lot of gray for me, especially like where we kind of touched on my diet. I can have no gray. And I'm usually a jump into the deep end kind of person. I did it with CrossFit. CrossFit became life. I became one of the stereotypical people who talk about CrossFit all the time, to the point where my family became the stereotypical family and told me to stop talking about CrossFit all the time. I didn't. Spoiler alert. But consistency is key. Don't give up. I mean, am I motivated every day? No. No. There are times I drag myself to the gym or talk myself into going to it, because I'm like, I worked a really long day. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm not feeling too well. I got a little bit of a headache. I shouldn't work. No, guys, go to the gym. Just go. You'll feel better afterwards. There's this weird thing that happens as you walk across the parking lot to the gym, or it happens to me, and that's all these dark clouds that are telling me not to go. They start lifting. When I hear a barbell hit the ground, it's like a bell. that's drawing me home, you know? It's it's and all of a sudden when I step through those doors, it's like this is where I'm supposed to be. And the
Mm-hmm.
people around me, they're my family. And anybody, again, anybody who works out with me, anybody who works out and tells me about it, they're my family. You know, it doesn't even matter if you do CrossFit or not. If you're doing something, you're making your life better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, I got to throw a shout out to my girl Faith right here. Hey.
What's going on, Faith? Thank you for joining us on tonight's episode. Greatly appreciated. I know you already know Angie's story. But guys,
She's the
remember, if you have
homegirl
any
right
questions
there.
during the course of tonight's interview, go ahead and throw those questions up, and Angie will go ahead and get to those questions. So let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
So let's talk about that time of your life when you were overweight.
Okay.
And again, the goal of this interview is to motivate people that are where you were, to get them to get started, to get to where you are right now. So I know a lot of times in life when, you know, we miss out on things because of certain situations. Talk about some of the things that you missed out on in your earlier life because you were overweight.
Riding rides at Six Flags. That's a big one. When I was a kid, every year we would go to Six Flags as a family for family reunions. And there was a time where I could ride the rides, no problem. And then there was one year I couldn't ride the rides anymore because I couldn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
The next year I still couldn't fit. So I stopped going. They kept going. I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. I've missed out on tons of family things, or time with friends because I just simply couldn't keep up, or there wasn't enough room in the car. I actually had a friend tell me that they almost didn't invite me to a party at their house because they had a small living room and they didn't think they'd have enough room for everybody.
Wow.
If I was there. So that happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's one of those things that you do use as motivation. You know, I've missed out on birthday parties. I've missed out on things because I was just simply too tired to go.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where I was so big I didn't want to do anything. So I didn't for a good long time because there were no real chairs in the world that could accommodate me, because most chairs in the world that the places I would go to, like the movie theater, have arms. Can't fit in those.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't fit in those. So why would I go somewhere where where the world isn't made for a person that big? Why would I do that?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I would miss out on, but I convinced myself I was okay.
Mm-hmm. So you said there was a point where your blood pressure started to rise and you had difficulty moving around and you had some digestive issues. So, and you also said the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with you. How
Correct.
frustrating was that time, you knowing that something's wrong with you, but no one can tell you what it is?
I was at my wit's end. Like, I don't know how to really describe how frustrating it is, other than I'm not the type of person to punch holes in walls, but I was that frustrated. If I was that person, I would punch holes in walls. I know that I would just let out these frustrated roars to the sky, wondering what is going on with me? What is wrong with me? Yeah, it was very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know. I mean, I remember they actually took me in to have a procedure done, and the IV line blew out of my vein, and they didn't want to put another one in because they would have to use a little what is that thing that ultrasound. They would have to use an ultrasound to find my veins in my arm because it blew.
Wow.
That was frustrating. So this procedure that was supposed to find out what was wrong with me didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
because the IV blew.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm just like, just get me out of here. I'll just suffer. Okay. I'm not going to spend any more money for y'all to tell me what's not happening to me. I'll just go home and suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was that frustrating. I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But to answer the question that came up, did I feel like my weight defined me as a person? There were times, yes. Mm-hmm. You know, I've being heavy and being big has been so much part of who I have been in mm-hmm. my life that even now at this current weight, I'll still look at a chair and that has arms and be like, can I fit in that? I mean, and there was I went to a funeral a few months back, and people who knew me at my biggest didn't recognize me mm-hmm. Until I smiled. But I was known for being large. Mm-hmm. That is very true. So yes, it did define who I was and how I lived my life. It sure mm-hmm. did. Yeah. But yeah.
So how would you save somebody that's going down your same path and for whatever reason they're putting off making the choice to do something? What would you say to that person?
I would do my best to wake them up, because if they are anything like I didn't want to wake up. And so you have to get to that point of wanting to take responsibility for where you are at that point mm-hmm. and then doing something about it. Because if they're not ready for that, there's nothing you can do to make them make that choice. But to that person who is ready, I would encourage them. I would, help them with their nutrition. I would, cheer them on. If all they could do was walk to the mailbox and back, awesome. I am cheering you on. I would walk to that mailbox with you too if I could, because that's what that person needs. Because oftentimes, if they're anything like I was convinced it was too late for me. I was convinced that there was nothing I could do to get out of it. So basically it was just, let's maintain and try not to gain too much weight more so that we can at least, attempt to live, attempt to have a life, because when you're that big, you are trapped. I mean, you're literally trapped by your body, and it gets very discouraging. Emotions and depression, that's very much a part of it as well. And oftentimes we won't show it. We'll compensate and we'll show people that we're happy just so they don't ask us what's wrong, because we don't want to tell. It's like we can't open up and let you see the real us, because we know deep down that we did it to ourselves. Nobody else is responsible but us. And that's scary. That is terrifying. And then there's the intimidation of actually doing something about it, because we're convinced we're alone. I was convinced I was alone in my fight. I wasn't. I have a wonderful, support system, but I didn't realize it at the time. And the reason why we're convinced that we're alone, or at least I was, is because who else could really understand what I'm going through? They've never been this size before. They they can only sympathize. They can't empathize. They don't know what it's really like to stand up and have your heart just go and be like, all right, guys, I got to sit down again. Hold on. I stood up too quickly. But it was not only that, but you just simply can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
And so who else would understand the struggle?
Yeah.
But they still need the support. And so you would have to just be there for them. And because I have been there, I am able to empathize. I know what it's like to struggle for breath just from walking across the room. I know what it's like to think I'm dying when all I did was walk the block. I know what it's like to start. I know what it's like. And I know what it's like to want to give up, to think that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
That especially when you get on the scale and don't see results, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You like, because
I know you even said that at one point you ignored how bad the problem was. So
yeah.
so do you wish you would have started this journey or gotten serious about this journey sooner?
I do. I do wish that I had been that I had awoken, that God had woken me up and be like, baby, let's do this a little sooner. But then I think about it. God had me go through everything I did for a reason. If he had started me sooner, I may not have been in the place mentally that I needed to be in order to see it through.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a part of me that does wish I started sooner, that because at this point I kind of feel like I'm making up for lost time in living. You know, I feel like I lived half my life in prison and I've gotten out of jail, and I'm finally starting to live. But if you focus on the past, it's going to drag you down. I mean, remember it, because it all has lessons, but don't let it hold you. That's almost as much of a prisoner as the physical.
Yeah.
You know, and the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, don't even bother with. You know, concentrate on what you're doing now. Learn the lessons, but concentrate on moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, yes and no, I guess.
So I know that you also had mentioned that you said you wouldn't have gotten the surgery because now you realize that you could have done it on your own.
That is true.
So
that is very true.
What prevented you from realizing that sooner?
I had no fitness education growing up. It wasn't a part of my life. I mean, my siblings played sports, but I never did. And then I never got in, like, I avoided PE. I thought it was evil. You know, I mean, I had wanted nothing to do with it because I always got tired. I couldn't run. You know, I like I said, I've been heavy all my life. I didn't know anything else. And so what prevented me was I just wasn't exposed. I didn't have the education.
Yeah.
We had what was taught to us in schools, but that's not enough. It's simply not. That, and me growing up is different than it is now. We didn't have the internet like we do now. We don't have, I mean, we had the library.
Yeah.
But the internet was in its infancy when I was growing up. You know, it's like it didn't really become a huge thing until like when I was in high school. That's when it was like started to get everywhere. But like we didn't really have smartphones.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of that. We had cell phones, but they were for texting and calling. You know, imagine calling a person. You know, but no. But we didn't have access to the information that we do today. So that's a really cool thing. But yeah, had I known back then that I was able to do it, I wouldn't have gotten the surgery. people can do it alone. I mean, it's a tool. Surgery is a tool, and some people may need it. I'm not dogging on anybody who does get it. You do what you got to do to turn your life around. But for me, I would have not gotten it had I known then what I know now. You know?
So you're where you're at now, and part of it is because of the way you eat. So let's talk about how your relationship with food has changed, and share with us some of your dietary tips.
Okay. This is a loaded question. Like I said, I'm kind of experimenting on myself right now. But my relationship with food, you want a before picture of it or after, or the after picture first?
Take us to the evolution,
of
your eating regimen.
All right. So when I was at my heaviest and all through life, food was my comfort, and I used it as such. And I had FOMO before FOMO was a thing. You know, if somebody was eating something, all of a sudden I wanted to eat it too. And I would do anything I could to figure out how I was going to eat that thing. Like I remember waking up from nap time as a kid, going to the kitchen and snitching the food. You know, it's like nothing was going to keep me from that fried venison. You know? And so that I just took that mentality into growing up. You know, like I come from a family who, you know, good Southern cooks. You know how we do. You know,
I do know.
Fry everything, grill everything. I mean, it's delicious. It's also dipped in butter. You know, not that there's anything wrong with butter, guys.
Not at all.
You know, but you know, typically it's not the healthiest. Growing up, vegetables typically came in a can, so I was convinced I didn't like them. Don't hate me, Mom. You know it's true. But yeah, food wasn't really a thing that was taught, and we did come from a lower income, so we had a larger family, so we got what we could afford, and typically the food that can be afforded is not the healthiest. So my parents did you know, they fed us. They kept food on our table, and they did the best that they knew. But it wasn't exactly the healthiest. And so when I started working out, like seriously working out, when I discovered CrossFit, that's when my attitudes on food started changing. I started reading about the paleo diet. You know, and I heard that was the diet of CrossFitters. So I'm like, well, I want to be a CrossFitter. I should start eating like a CrossFitter. So I dived into paleo, and and here's another thing that might be a little difficult for people is like, people, when your friends start getting healthy and start eating different, don't shame them for it. Just accept them for who they are and for what they're trying to do, because I faced a lot of opposition of, oh, you don't eat potatoes? Why don't you eat potatoes? Why don't you eat bread? Here, have some rice. And I'm like, guys, I don't eat that anymore. And so there's a lot of pressure to stay the same.
Yeah.
And so you got to overcome that pressure and stick to your guns, guys. But like I said, I started with paleo. And for the longest time, that's how I did. And yeah, the weight did come off. The weight did come off and continue to do so. And I ate to fuel my workouts. Was I 100% perfect all the time? Oh no. But I did stop drinking sodas. And I started drinking more like tea and water. I mean, I was never a sweet tea drinker anyway. I know, shocker, being from Texas and all that, I don't like sweet tea. And yeah, it was one of those where, you know, then I discovered putting a little bit of carbs in where paleo would take it out. And then I just kind of fell off the wagon of paleo and So I was like semi paleo, and then I discovered keto, and then I discovered just low carb all together. And the point I'm trying to make is, if your food is clean, that's real vegetables, not in a can, real fruit, not in a can, meat that is responsibly done without all the hormones. I mean, there's no magic pill. It's another place where consistency comes in, is don't eat crap. Don't eat processed. And you're gonna watch the weight come off. I mean, you want to eat some rice? Okay, eat some rice. Don't overdo it. You know, there's no 100% way of eating that works for everybody 100% of the time. Everybody's different. I mentioned that I'm experimenting on myself right now. I've been carnivore for over 100 days. Carnivore is like vegan, but completely opposite. You know?
Yeah.
You know, and I have noticed my muscle, like I've gained 6 pounds of muscle since April, but like I said, it was an experiment. I also gained some fat volume with that. But since I started tweaking it a little bit, the fat has started to come off. The muscle is still staying. So, I mean, it's a work in progress. And I will say, I know carnivore sounds extreme. It is. It's hard. You know, everybody would think, oh, you eat meat all the time, it's going to be awesome. Just wait until you miss oranges. Or vegetables, because I do. But this is the experiment I'm doing right now, just to see how things happen, because I've read a lot about it. So don't be afraid to try new things, guys. You know, you never know what's going to work for you unless you experiment with it, you know. Just have fun with it and give yourself some grace. You know, it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, I'm not 100%. I'm probably about between 95 and 98% good, you know? But yeah, my relationship with food, it no longer really holds as much power over me as it did. It used to be what could be considered, you know, like an idol, you know, like it was life. My life revolved around where my next meal was coming from. It, you know, it doesn't anymore. Now it's very much about fueling for body transformation. And making it taste good, because if I get bored with it, that's when me and food go crazy and be like, and I start looking, but I still have to make it taste good. I love to cook, guys. What's the question? I have another question. Are you still followed by your surgeon or MD? To answer that question, no, I don't even know if he remembers who I am. I haven't talked to him in years. And did I ever discuss my diet with them or a nutritionist? I have not discussed my diet with a nutritionist, and oddly enough, nutrition wasn't really discussed with me either pre-surgery or even post-surgery. Most of what I know about nutrition is extremely self-taught. So I'm not a professional, guys. Just want to throw that one out there. I'm not a professional. Well, everything I say, take it with a grain of salt, do your research, all right?
And that's the most important part, is doing your own research, because, you know, this show is about gaining new perspectives and new ideas. And, you know, so the important thing is that you say, okay, I like what Angie said there, but it can't just end there. It has to be where you take action and do something about it, because that's the only way you're going to know if that thing will work for you. So I always tell everybody, out of every interview that I do, if you take just one thing from it, put it into action and commit yourself, you'll find out if it's right for you or if it's not. So Tams.Marie said, I no longer purposely diet. I listen to what my system is saying and am a grazer and eat very small portions every 4 hours or so. So that's definitely one way of doing it. Like I said, there's something different for everyone, but you got to find what works for you. So Angie, we talked about where you started at, We talked about your bumps, your ups and your downs, your goods, your bads, your highs, your lows. We talked about everything, exercise, diet. So we've had an absolutely awesome interview, and you shared some really great things. And guys, I know that if you utilize this stuff, you too can be just as successful as Angi. But there's one question that I ask everybody before we end the show. And Angi, that question is, what are you hoping to accomplish by sharing your story?
That is a wonderful question. I hope to accomplish inspiration to others, to show the people who, not just the people who are currently where I was. I would love to wake every single one of them up and show them that it is not too late for them. It doesn't matter how old or how heavy, there's always hope. But that message is for everybody, is that there is always hope. God always has a plan, and there is always hope. There is always a day one. There is always the light, there is always that love to just become who you were meant to become, because you're not meant to stay in a shell, be it flesh or whatever it is, mental, emotional, whatever it is. You're meant to be out living with people. You're meant to be healthy, and that doesn't mean wasting away hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I hope to accomplish, is that they realize that there is hope.
Yes.
That they too can do exactly, in their own way, get their life back.
So true. So true. So Angi, before we get on out of here, give everybody your Instagram. How can people reach out to you? Because I know now, after hearing your amazing story and all the weight that you've lost and all the great things that you've accomplished, people are going to want to continue to follow your journey. So how can the audience follow your journey?
All right. My Instagram and my Facebook, because I use the same. I tried to keep it simple, guys. It's at Angi Faye, and Angi is Angi. Faye is Fae. That is the best way to get a hold of me. Is either Facebook or Insta.
So guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching the replay, I'm going to put Angi's information down below in the description so you can go on and follow her journey, because I know she is going to continue to kill it.
Oh, totally.
So guys, again, if you've missed any of the past episodes of Weight Loss Words and you'd like to get caught up, head on over to youtube.com/fitnessmotivation4u2. That's fitness motivation, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2. Also, guys, if you got a weight loss story that you'd like to share and you'd like to do it here on a future episode, hit me up on my DM. So go ahead and DM me and let's talk. But if you're watching this on YouTube, on YouTube, down below in the description, click the link and let's talk about getting you on a future episode. Guys, we had an awesome episode again. Those people that get results, they take action. They do something about it. They're consistent. And if you do the same, just like Angi, you can be just as successful. So guys, we are about to get on out of here. This is Mr. Fitness, the body transformation specialist, and Angi signing off. And as always, where there's a will, there's a way. And
bye,
we
guys.
hope you have an awesomely great day. Till next time.
Bye.